In today's hyper-connected world, well, our digital data is basically our lifeblood. It's everywhere, cloud, servers, pockets. And honestly, it's under constant attack.
Relentless attack.
Yeah, and forget just basic hacking. We're seeing these really sophisticated cyber threats, ransomware especially, that are now smart enough to actively hunt down and encrypt or even just destroy your digital backup.
Which is terrifying. That's your safety net. Gone.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
a scary reality. Even with all the advanced digital defenses we pile on, the risk that critical info could be lost forever or changed or held hostage, it's just going up and up.
It really highlights a fundamental vulnerability, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If your digital world gets compromised, like truly compromised,
You need something completely outside that digital mess, an ultimate fallback.
an escape hatch that isn't digital at all.
And this is where our deep dive today takes, well, a pretty surprising turn. Because the solution that many governments, critical institutions are turning to for that ultimate fallback, it's microfilm.
Yeah. Microfilm, the stuff you might associate with old library archives or spy movies, maybe.
Right. So how on earth does this old school analog tech become a key piece of a modern digital cybersecurity strategy? It feels like a total paradox.
It absolutely does seem counterintuitive, but the sources we've looked at, they lay out a really compelling argument. Microfilm isn't trying to replace digital systems day to day.
Yeah.
Instead, it's playing this very specific, very vital role, providing an unbreachable, totally air-gapped security layer for those digital documents.
So it's like the ultimate insurance policy for your most critical data, for when all the digital locks fail.
That's a great way to put it, the ultimate insurance.
Okay, so our mission today is to unpack these sources. We've got articles, research papers, government guidelines, and really understand the why. Why are serious organizations looking back to microfilm as this crucial air-gapped cyber measure?
What makes this analog tech so relevant, maybe even essential right now? We need to figure out the key insights, the surprising facts.
We'll dig into how its unique physical nature gives it a resilience against these really nasty digital threats, a resilience that, well, digital solutions just can't fully replicate by themselves, especially for that long-term untouchable backup.
Let's start with the basics then, the core problem. This growing need for what's called air gapping. What exactly is an air gap based on our sources?
So at its heart, air gapping is all about isolation, right? It's a cybersecurity strategy.
Yeah, the main goal is to completely disconnect a system or a data set from, any external network, anything potentially unsecured.
You're basically cutting the digital wires.
You are. You eliminate those digital pathways,
Yeah.
creating a boundary that digital threats just can't cross electronically.
Okay, so the purest form is literally just unplugging it, no connection at all.
That's the classic physical air gap. Our sources talk about this as complete physical separation. No internet, no local network, no Wi-Fi, zero electronic links. Data can only get in or out manually. Think carrying a USB drive, carefully vetted, of course, or, well, a roll of film. One source calls this having a zero digital attack surface.
Makes sense. If there's no digital door, remote attacks just bounce off.
Exactly. Immune. But like you said, you can't run most modern interactive systems like that.
No, definitely not for day-to-day stuff.
Right. So that leads to other types. There's the logical air gap. This keeps network connectivity, but uses really strict software controls. Things like firewalls, VLANs.
VLANs being like virtual network segments.
Yeah.
Keeping traffic separate within the network.
Precisely. Software-defined separation plus strict access rules. It tries to find that balance between security and letting systems actually talk to each other when needed.
So connected, but with a super strict digital bouncer controlling everything.
Kind of, yeah. And then there's the network air gap. This often uses specific hardware. Data diodes are mentioned.
The diodes.
Yeah.
Well, those are the one-way streets for data, right? Hardware enforced.
Exactly, like a one-way valve. Data can flow out from a secure network, say, but absolutely nothing can flow back in through that path. No return channel for threats.
That seems pretty robust for certain situations, like sending monitoring data out securely.
Very useful, yes. And then, of course, you see hybrid air gaps combining these. Maybe a true physical air gap for the deepest archive, but logical controls for the more operational systems.
Okay, so different flavors of isolation. But why is this whole air gap idea becoming so critical now? What's driving this urgency?
Well, the sources are pretty clear. It's the escalating sophistication of attacks, especially ransomware. It's not just encrypting your main files anymore.
Right. It's going after the backups, too.
It's specifically designed to find and destroy or encrypt your digital backups because the attackers know if they get the backup, you're completely stuck. You have no recovery option.
They've got all the leverage then.
Totally. So an air-gapped system or backup, by its very nature, is unreachable by these digital threats. The ransomware literally cannot connect to it. It's immune in that sense.
Plus, if the air-gapped copy is also immutable, unchangeable, that's another huge layer, isn't it?
A massive layer. Protection against ransomware encryption, protection against malicious dilution or alteration, even by insiders. It preserves data integrity.
So air-gapping stops remote hacks, malware, and gives you a fighting chance against ransomware and insider threats by keeping a clean, separate, potentially unalterable copy.
And for disaster recovery, it's your gold standard. You know that air-gapped copy is clean, untainted. It guarantees you can actually recover essential data when everything else, digital systems, maybe even the building itself, has failed.
Gotcha. Now, one source mentioned something like a true air gap is no longer practical.
Yeah.
How does that fit? It seems contradictory.
Yeah, that's a really important point to clarify. The sources suggest that statement usually applies to active, interconnected systems, like the systems running real-time banking services or hospital monitoring.
Okay, things that need constant connection.
Exactly. You can't realistically air-gap those completely and have them function, but
Right.
for archival purposes or for that ultimate disaster recovery backup, where the main goal isn't instant interaction, but long-term secure preservation.
Then physical isolation is still the best.
It's the gold standard precisely because it eliminates that digital attack surface. And that's the exact niche where microfilm suddenly looks very, very relevant.
Right, makes sense. Not for live systems, but essential for that final untouchable archive. Which brings us perfectly to microfilm itself. What are these unique analog superpowers it has against digital threats?
Well, its biggest strength is kind of ironic. It's the fact that it's analog. One source called it the analog paradox.
The analog paradox, I like that.
It fits perfectly. First and most basic, physical isolation. Microfilm is just photographic film. It exists purely in the physical realm.
No USB ports, no Wi-Fi antennas.
None. No electronic bits at all. Data gets onto it through a physical process, and you read it by physically looking at the film or scanning it. So it's inherently completely immune to remote hacking, malware, ransomware, anything coming over a network.
There's simply no digital door for those threats to even knock on.
Not even a doorbell. Second big one, immutability. Once information is recorded onto microfilm, especially using standard processes, it basically cannot be altered or corrupted without physically damaging the film, which would be obvious.
So it's tamper-proof. One source said impossible to edit or corrupt.
Pretty much, yes. For cybersecurity, that's huge. Ransomware can't encrypt it. A disgruntled employee can't secretly tweak old records. You have absolute confidence the copy is authentic.
That feels like a massive advantage compared to digital files, where, if someone gets past the security, editing or deleting is relatively easy.
It's a fundamental difference in the medium itself, and that leads to the third superpower, longevity and durability.
Ah, yes, the lifespan.
Properly processed silver halide microfilm, the archival standard, on a stable polyester base. The projected lifespan is up to 500 years.
500
years.
That's hard to even grasp compared to digital.
Isn't it? Think about digital media. Hard drives might last 5 years. Tapes, maybe 15, 30, if you're lucky, and rewind them. And formats become obsolete. You're constantly migrating data, worrying about bit rot.
Bit rot. Just the slow degradation of digital data over time.
Yeah, the bits literally fading or flipping. Microfilm, stored right, just sits there. It's this incredibly stable, passive insurance policy for centuries.
You make the copy, store it properly, and it could be readable in the year 2500 without needing constant IT intervention or format migrations.
That's the promise for long-term preservation. And finally, looping back, its resistance to digital threats is inherent. As a physical thing, it's immune to network attacks, but also things like electromagnetic pulses, EMPs, that could fry electronic systems.
Right, an EMP wouldn't affect a roll of film.
Your microfilm copy would just be there, unaffected. A clean, isolated version when potentially all your digital infrastructure is down.
So while our digital world is fighting off constantly evolving cyber threats and even physical electronic risks, the analog copy on film is just safe, separate, waiting.
It provides that absolute physical separation that electronic solutions, bound by their very nature, struggle to guarantee perfectly. It's the ultimate offline backup against threats that only live in the digital world.
Okay, the film itself sounds impressive. But our data starts digital. How do you get, say, gigabytes or terabytes of important digital documents onto this analog film securely and effectively? That's where this COM thing comes in.
Exactly. Computer output microfilm, or COM, is the bridge technology. It's designed specifically to convert digital data directly from a computer system onto microfilm, usually using lasers.
So it's like instead of hitting print to a laser printer, you hit print to a laser film writer.
That's a pretty good analogy, yeah. The COM system takes digital files, could be text documents, images, PDFs, complex data streams, and uses a precision laser to write tiny images or data patterns directly onto the film roll or fiche.
And the main goal here is what? Just archiving.
Primarily, yes. Creating archival quality, legally sound, and tamper-proof copies of your original digital files.
Okay, so what are the specific security and disaster recovery wins you get from doing this conversion?
Well, the moment that data hits the film via the COM process, that physical copy gains instant cyber immunity. It's now a physical object. It's air-gapped by definition. It's immune to any further digital manipulation or attack.
Ah, the digital threat stops right there at the COM machine.
It cuts the cord. And as we discussed, it creates that unalterable record. The digital data is now fixed in an analog format. You can't secretly edit it. It's your immutable, trustworthy snapshot in time.
Like setting your digital information in concrete, basically.
That's a good way to think about it. And this is obviously huge for disaster recovery. You convert the essential digital data to film, store it securely, often off-site, maybe in a salt mine, who knows.
Right, physically separate.
And now you have a backup protected from both physical disasters like fires or floods at your main site,
Wow.
and the cyber attacks that could wipe out all your live and backup digital systems.
And it brings that incredible longevity too, right? Preserving digital info for centuries.
Exactly. It overcomes the massive headache of long-term digital preservation, the constant media refreshment, format migration, checking for corruption. You make the COM copy, store it properly, and you've potentially got hundreds of years of stability.
So instead of that endless cycle of migrating massive digital archives every few years, you make the film copy, store it by the book, and you're good for the long haul.
That's the core value proposition for long-term, secure archiving. Plus, this is really important for compliance and legal admissibility. Many laws and regulations, especially for government, finance, healthcare records, demand long-term, human-readable, tamper-proof copies. COM output delivers exactly that.
It creates a trusted, legally recognized version of what was originally digital.
Precisely.
Okay, but for something to be, trusted legally or as a permanent archive,
Yep.
you need more than just the physics of film. There has to be a system of trust, right? How is reliability ensured?
You're absolutely right. It's not magic. The trustworthiness, especially for COM, is built on really strict standards and legal recognition. The sources emphasize this isn't just point and shoot. It's a highly controlled process.
Standards from who? Like industry bodies?
Yeah, key organizations like ANSI, the American National Standards Institute, and AIM, which is the Association for Information and Image Management, these groups set detailed standards for everything.
Covering what sorts of things?
Oh, everything. The quality of the film itself, specifying archival-grade silver gelatin film on a polyester base, for example. Image quality metrics, density targets, required resolution test patterns on the film, the chemical processing steps, even the specific temperature and humidity ranges for long-term storage.
Wow, okay, so it's a very precise chemical and photographic engineering process.
It really is. And here's the kicker. The legal admissibility of microfilm, especially COM, often hinges directly on proving you followed these established standards meticulously.
So if you cut corners on the process or storage,
your microfilm copy might not be accepted as valid evidence in court. That's a pretty strong incentive to do it right.
no kidding.
And this trust isn't just theoretical, it's baked into legal and regulatory frameworks worldwide. The sources mentioned Brazil actually having a federal law making microfilm the only legally recognized substitute for certain original documents.
The only one. Wow.
Yeah. Israel's courts show a preference for it. The U.S. National Archives, NARA, has stringent standards. State laws, like in Texas, specify its use. Even the UK's tax authority, HMRC, permits its use for records.
Okay, so this isn't some fringe idea. It's got serious legal weight behind it globally.
Absolutely. That widespread legal acceptance comes from decades of proven reliability and these standardized, verifiable processes. It confirms it's a trusted method for creating that defensible, uncompromised, long-term record,
It's not just a tech solution, it's embedded in the legal and information management infrastructure.
which underlines that its value is very real and relied upon.
So, given all this, the air gap security, the incredible lifespan, the legal backing who is actually doing this today, is it just archives or is it a broader trend?
Oh, it's definitely a real ongoing strategic practice, and it's used by organizations that absolutely cannot afford to lose their critical information, especially in the worst-case scenarios. It's not just history, it's active strategy.
Okay, give us some examples from the sources. Who's relying on film?
All right, in the U.S., NARI, the National Archives, still uses microfilm extensively for permanent federal records. That's huge. Many state archives, like Texas and Pennsylvania are mentioned, use it for records needing very long-term retention, often billing it into their cybersecurity and disaster plans.
So even as they digitize like crazy for online access.
The microfilm often remains the ultimate preservation master copy. Even historically, think high-security environments like the National Air and Space Intelligence Center. NASIC used advanced microfilm systems back in the day, showing its long use where physical isolation was paramount.
Makes sense. How about elsewhere? The UK?
In the UK, the Nuclear Decommissioning Authority, dealing with incredibly sensitive long-term plant documentation, actually mandates having critical records in 3 forms: digital, paper, and microfilm.
Wow, triple redundancy with film as a key part.
Tells you how seriously they take needing an immutable, air-gapped copy. And the UK National Archives does something interesting. They provide digital access online to records that were originally preserved on microfilm. The film is the secure source they digitize from.
That's a fantastic example of the hybrid approach. Microfilm is the vault copy, digital is the access copy.
Exactly. And you see similar patterns in Europe. National archives and libraries in Germany, Sweden, Norway, they all maintain major microfilm collections. Sweden's National Archives apparently microfilms historical documents first before they even digitize them for the web.
Picture it on film, then make it accessible digitally. Seems like a theme.
It really is. It looks like a deliberate digital first for access, microfilm last for preservation and security strategy. Digital is great for use, but for that core, legally binding, cyber-immune, permanent record, the physical nature of microfilm is seen as indispensable.
And beyond the U.S. and Europe.
Well, we mentioned Brazil's law making it the only substitute sometimes, Israel's courts preferring it. There was even an example of a major hospital in Portugal using it for long-term patient record security.
Okay, so this isn't niche at all. It's a global practice for critical, long-life, sensitive data. Specifically because digital systems alone are seen as vulnerable to threats that microfilm is just immune to. It's that tested air gap solution.
It's the proven way to ensure you have an uncompromised long-term backup that cyber threats simply cannot reach. Full stop.
All right, this has been genuinely fascinating. Let's try and wrap up the key takeaways from this deep dive.
Okay. I think the main point is that microfilm, far from being some dusty relic, is actually a strategic cybersecurity asset today. Its core strengths, that inherent physical air gap, the incredible longevity, the guaranteed immutability, offer a unique kind of resilience.
Resilience specifically against modern digital threats, like that ransomware that cleverly targets digital backups. Microfilm provides that pure physical isolation, zero digital attack surface, making it, well, the ultimate immune backup layer.
Right. And the COM process, computer output microfilm, is that crucial bridge. It lets us securely take our vital digital information and lock it into this unalterable, long-lasting, physically separate format. It's a critical piece of robust disaster recovery and cyber defense.
And the trust in it isn't just wishful thinking. It's built on rigorous standards, national, international, and reinforced by solid legal recognition worldwide. Governments and institutions rely on it because it works, it's trusted, it holds up.
Yeah, and the global picture isn't about abandoning microfilm. It's about integrating it smartly into hybrid strategies. Use digital for its strengths, access, searchability, daily use, but use microfilm for its unique strengths: ultimate security, permanence, immutability, the air gap.
So for you listening, understanding this kind of hybrid approach is really key to seeing how crucial information is actually being protected behind the scenes in our very vulnerable digital world. Whether it's state secrets, historical archives, or even just vital business records you need for decades. Maybe relying only on digital isn't enough for that ultimate safety net.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? Using what seems like old analog tech as a cutting-edge cybersecurity tool definitely challenges our assumptions about what modern security even means.
It leaves us with a pretty fundamental question, I think. In an age where digital stuff can be copied instantly, changed subtly, or wiped out completely with a click or some malware.
Yeah.
What's the real lasting value of having a record that's physically permanent? Tangible?
Unalterable.
Something to chew on. It forces a look beyond just speed and convenience towards what's needed for true long-term information survival and security.
Really fascinating. Okay, that was our deep dive into the surprisingly sharp edge where microfilm meets modern cybersecurity.